Hi, I'm Zibby Owens, and I am the host of this podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I am also a newly minted USA Today best-selling author of the novel Blank. I've created a whole community of book lovers around this podcast, a publishing company, reading retreats, a bookstore, and more. Learn more at zibbymedia.com or follow me on social at Zibby Owens or join the community at Zibby Readers. Sheila Yasmin Marikar is the author of Friends in Napa, a novel. Sheila is the author also of The Goddess Effect. She is a frequent contributor to The New Yorker, The New York Times, The Economist, Fortune, Bloomberg Businessweek, Vogue, and many other publications. Her New York Times Magazine profile of the chef Gagan Anand was selected for the 2021 edition of Best American Food Writing. Sheila began her career at ABC News. A native of New Jersey, she is a graduate of Cornell University, where she studied history. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband. Welcome, Sheila. Thank you so much for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss your latest novel, Friends in Napa, which is a Mindy's book studio pick or publication.
Thank you so much for having me, Zibby. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we both work with Carmen Johnson, who's like my favorite person.
She is wonderful, and I just got to meet her in person for the first time a couple of weeks ago in New York at my launch event there, and what a delightful, it was just delightful, and I feel like she knows me front to back, despite us never having been in the same room.
Yes, it's very nice having an editor who kind of gets the writing and all the stuff. And as I was reading yours, I was like, oh, I love this writing style. Like this, I get, this is like, of course, like Carmen is drawn to this as well, because I am too. Anyway, it's great.
Well, it's very similar to your style in Blank. You know, you drop in and there you are. And these are characters that could be your best friends or your sister, or they're just people. I like to write people that I feel like I meet in life. You know, they're not in an ivory tower somewhere, like looking down on the rest of civilization.
Yeah. And observational too. I mean, how funny you were about even like in the opening scene, like the women on the plane who were like MILFs, whatever. MILFs. What was it? MILFs. I can't remember. Something like
MILFs without borders.
Oh,
which
right.
is actually something that I heard a woman on a plane once say. She described herself that way to someone else. And I was like, that's just hilarious. Like, Good for you, woman. Thank you for inspiring me.
And you're like, and not only that, then she had sold like 36,000 sweatshirts, and you're like, oh gosh, and you're a working mom too, and you're like, drinking mimosas. It's like it's one way to show envy and respect at the same time, and just like the ludicrous nature of life, and that we can all arrive in the same spot and yet look and feel so different, and yet aren't there things that are the same? So, I mean, you're not you. Your character is a working mom. Her mom on the plane away from the kids and finally trying to take a minute. And we've all been in that. Well, I shouldn't say we all. Okay, let me back up. There's like so much I want to talk about. Why don't you tell listeners what your book is about?
Sure. So Friends in Napa is about a group of college friends who reunite after a long time of not seeing each other in wine country. And one of them ends up dead. That's basically my elevator pitch. But if you like The White Lotus, this is a lot like The White Lotus in the vein of like, it's a dark comedy, it's a satire, but there is also a murder kind of wrapped into it. And you do have to read until the end to figure out who was killed and why it happened and what happens afterwards. And, I wanted to create something that was like bingeable in the same way that a TV series would be. I've heard so many people say that they've read it in one sitting or in 24 hours, or they just, couldn't wait to keep coming back to it. And those are exactly the types of books that I love too, where I almost want to savor them for longer. I want to spread it out over a longer course of time, but you're just like drawn. You're like, I gotta keep flipping the pages. I'm gonna stay up too late. I'm gonna, I'll be a little tired tomorrow. It's okay. But yeah, that's the book.
That is the best feeling when a book hits you just the right way. How did you get involved with Mindy Kaling? Like, how does that work? I'm not as familiar with that piece of the puzzle.
So Carmen actually works with Mindy as well.
Mhm.
And from the beginning, the idea with Friends in Napa, back then it was called Wine Country. That was the working title. And that's also the name of a film that Tina Fey and Amy Poehler did for Netflix about wine country. So we decided, you know what, we'll we'll do something a little bit different. But it initially, the idea I had was a girls' trip gone wrong, and it was just going to be two women, at different like kind of personal and professional junctures in their life, going to wine country to get away from their problems. And Carmen and I started talking, and she said, if you're into it, we'd love to try to develop this for Mindy, for her imprint, but she's not going to. She wants to read a full manuscript before she decides what's going under her umbrella. So write it. And if it doesn't work for Mindy, then it'll go with little A, which is the imprint that you're on, that the Goddess Effect, my first novel, was published under. And yeah, so that to me felt like, all right, sure, let's shoot for the stars and hope that she loves it. And as I was writing, especially the character of Anjali, who is the working mom, who is a little bit, she's certainly disgruntled when you first meet her. She's wanting a life that she feels like is out of her reach. I feel like there's so much similarity between the characters that Mindy plays and the characters that she creates and Anjali. And I was just picturing Mindy in my head as I was writing this character. And I could totally see her, especially that airplane scene, just being like, it's not fair that I don't get to use the first class bathrooms. Like, what are you talking about?
So true. Can I read just like a little bit of the beginning just to show your voice and all that?
Please do. Yeah, I'd be honored.
So even the things you're saying, like the tiny Ziploc bags that even like an apple has to squeeze into to fit. I mean, what is with those little bags? What are they for? Things are always falling out. I don't get it.
No idea.
I
ordered them by accident once, and I was like, "What am I going to do with these?"
You had a line you said, and this is not what I was the whole paragraph, but just one line you said, she wondered if a condition of being an adult was that you always thought you should be doing something other than what you were doing. I love that. I'm always like that. I should be doing this. I should be doing that.
You're not the first person to say that either. And it is something that I think multiple times a day. Like, oh, I'm working on this thing, but like, wait, no, I'm going to just stop that and switch to this. And I think we all feel like that at some point.
So pulled. But that's like the art of it, right? Making that feeling, putting it into words in a different way so that we all kind of feel seen. I mean, you're so funny. You said, was Xerox still a company? I like chuckle at all these lines so much because that's the way I think too. I'm like, da-da-da, and then I'm like, wait, Xerox, is Xerox still a company? And then you put it in. It's just so funny. You said she wished she was the sort of woman who would accept a tennis bracelet as an apology. Well, she wouldn't turn down a tennis bracelet. She wasn't made of stone, but it wouldn't even occur to David, her husband, to make a grand gesture like that, even if they could afford it. The problem with joint credit cards, if he spent $7,000 at Tiffany's, she'd get a fraud alert, as if she didn't already know. Charitable thoughts. She was supposed to be thinking charitable thoughts about her partner, about her marriage, about their life.
I love that you recognize the humor in that. And yeah, it just struck me as something, I'm sure it often happens, people who have joint credit cards. My husband and I do have a joint card, but any kind of shopping that I'm doing that on my own. Like,
Yeah.
Unless we're buying something together or he's getting me a gift or something like that, I do not want to have to explain why did I spend $500 on a vintage jewelry website that I just found on a random Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
That's just what happened.
Yeah, private business. I know every so often I look into my husband's like credit card expenses and I'm hoping he's not doing the same. Just like what was this about? Tell me a little bit about this one. Because you just don't know.
Yeah, if I looked at my husband, I do not want to. I don't want to. Like, I'll have too many questions.
No, everyone should have their privacy.
Yes, that's right.
So talk about the Napa setting. I understand that you thought of this. We can't totally remember the conversation. And I was just saying, I listened to your conversation that you had. I'm sorry I couldn't be there for your launch event at Zibby's bookshop. And you were talking about that and everything. Tell me about the launch and if anything happened that you didn't expect or anything like that. And then talk about the Napa setting. I mean, why not sit in Napa? It's like amazing, but
Right. Yeah. Well, as far as the Napa setting, I just thought I love the idea of doing something in wine country. It's a place that I think so many people, whether or not you're a wine connoisseur or even if you don't really drink that much wine or drink in general, I think in the popular imagination, it just has we have this idea of it as this like beautiful rolling hillsides and vineyards and sunshine, and there's the sense of, especially if you do drink like this, like your glass is never going to be empty. There's always going to be another winery to go to, or another bar to visit, another great meal to have, because there's fabulous cuisine in wine countries all around the world. And there's also a sense of, I know I've experienced this with my own friends, like okay, it's like a real booze-filled getaway. And who knows what can happen? I get to let my hair down and really like sort of party, which I say in quotes, but with like a little bit of a sheen of like, oh, this is also like culture. It's not like you're, doing shots on top of a bar, which does happen in wine country, but you're not going to like a typical spring break destination, let's say. So it felt to me like a place where again, this group of college friends getting together, anything could happen. It could be a very buttoned up and kind of proper weekend, but it could also just be like they could rediscover their love of binge drinking or these grudges that have been simmering for too long. And you have one too many glasses, and all of a sudden you're saying things that you maybe can't take back. And yeah, Napa to me, just I've been there more times than I can count. Being a resident of California, I lived in the Bay Area for a year and a half, so I would sometimes be up there multiple weekends a month. While I've never lived there, it is a place that feels very familiar to me, and I have a lot of friends, actual friends in Napa, who are thankfully not like this group of people who I would never want to be friends with. But yeah, and then the event at Zibby's bookshop, I mean, first of all, what an amazing place. I live on the east side of Los Angeles, so I'm not in Santa Monica that often, but I'm definitely going to be coming up with excuses to go there, because the way that it's curated, and it feels cozy and like you want to spend time there. I found myself having to like tear myself away from browsing the stacks before the event. Like, oh wait, I have to go sit down now and do something. And then we had wine from Sipwell, and we had Ashwarya Iyer, the founder of Brightland Olive Oil, who is a very good friend of mine, and was such a great host. She's never done something like this before, and she just had, like, truly, I felt like she was channeling Barbara Walters or like Diane Sawyer. The way that she was like, I got my questions and we are going to get right into it. So it was a delight to kick off my book tour there.
Oh, I'm so glad. And thank you for saying all that. And again, I'm sorry I wasn't there, but I mean, living on the east side of LA, you might as well live in Northern California. I mean, honestly, the division between the people, I mean, it's far. It's really, it's a lot.
It is. I'm probably in New York more often than I'm in Santa Monica or Venice or the west side of LA.
I joke because we're in the Palisades, and originally I wanted to put the bookstore there, and the spot that was available was in Santa Monica, and I'm like, oh, no, that's too far. But meanwhile, I live in New York City. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would come out. I mean, it's so stupid.
It's, I mean, I think it's like the New York equivalent of, if you live on the Upper West Side, how often are you going to like Brooklyn, or I don't know, like Greenpoint, let's say? You really have to get out of your comfort zone. And we all have our routines, the places that we frequent often. But yeah, it was a nice excuse to get out there and realize like, oh yeah, it's also not that far. It's also R&D Kitchen, which is good. Yep. So good. That's where we went afterwards. And I really need to get back there because they have a phenomenal burger, and it was the perfect place to celebrate.
Well, one time when I'm out there, we should do that on purpose.
I am down. I'm 100% down.
I was scrolling through some of your bylines at the Times and all these other venues and the New Yorker and everything. And I was like, oh, I read that one. Oh, I read that one. That one too. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. How did you get to be like a prolific journalist at all these big deal publications?
Thank you. Thank you for reading my work. And it's often one of the biggest compliments that I get from friends and people who know me sometimes is that they'll read something, say in the New Yorker or the New York Times, and then say that they got to the end and they didn't realize it was me at the beginning, but then as they were reading, they were like, wait a minute, this is totally a Sheila story. And I like that people can pick me out of a crowd in that way. But how did I get to writing for them? Well, I started my career at ABC News 5 days after graduating from college. I all I wanted to do was live in New York. I grew up, well, not grew up, but like high school, college was spent watching Sex in the City and just thinking I have to have my own version of that Carrie Bradshaw lifestyle. And my parents said, sure, but you're going to pay for it. We can't, pay for your Manhattan apartment. So I figured, okay, got to get a place in the city, have to get a job that doesn't have much to do with math because that is not my strong suit. So what are we going to do? And after a series of internships, media was something I was very interested in. And yeah, I started as a desk assistant on the overnight shift at the world headquarters of ABC News on the Upper West Side. And for 7 years, I moved my way up the ladder. I was eventually the entertainment editor and reporter for abcnews.com. This was the time when TMZ was really taking off and Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan. And this whole group of people were kind of in and out of their own legal battles and dramas. And I was having to chronicle this stuff that I never in a million years had wanted to do. I felt it was making me feel really terrible inside. There was one particular list of Britney, like all the bad things Britney has done or something where I said, I don't want to, I almost got fired because I didn't want to put my name on it. And it was just reprehensible to me. The day before my 30th birthday, I decided I cannot turn 30 and still be doing this. It's really like crushing my soul. So I quit. And I had always wanted to write for the New York Times. I had a friend who was freelancing for them. She gave me her editor's name and I sent 12 ideas before they said, okay, here, sure, like give it a shot. Let's see if you can do it. And I don't think I'd ever been so nervous reporting a story and just so thorough because I knew if I mess this up, I'm not getting another chance with them. And thankfully, I did not mess it up. And that led to more stories with them and other magazines. And the New Yorker I started writing for in 2016, so about 8 years ago. And yeah, that's a very long answer to your question of how I got to be where I am now.
No, I love it. I wanted the backstory. So that's great.
Yeah.
Where do you want to take your whole career? More books, more journalism, more of everything, something different? What's going on?
Big question. Where do I want to take my whole career? I do love writing novels. I am kind of the idea for book 3 is on the back burner right now, sort of simmering. And it's like a slow cooker, something or the other. It needs, there's a little bit of time that it needs to kind of gel together. I would love to adapt my works of fiction for film, TV. Friends in Napa, especially, as well as the Goddess Effect. I really do see a lot of cinematic potential, and whether that means something on a TV screen or a movie screen, I just would love to get those made and be a part of making them. And then I would like to write a memoir or some kind of essay collection, something nonfiction. Haven't quite figured out what the conceit would be yet, but I'm not in a great rush to do it because I think that that's the type of thing, like often with fiction, with pretty much anything, you really have to feel like excited. And of course, there are going to be points in the writing process where you're like, I hate this thing. I can't believe that I got myself into this. Like, why? This is just such a slog. Why am I doing it? I want to quit. But there has to be that point of inspiration at the beginning where it feels like this is urgent and it needs to be told and I need to be the one to do it. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to do it. So that's how I'm feeling about maybe a nonfiction book for now. But I also, the access that I get through journalism and the rooms that I'm able to be in because I'm there as a reporter, I couldn't ask for better inspiration or a better well to draw from for all of my ideas. And I do want to keep doing that and keep doing stories that I love, that I also feel called to, and that I think I can hopefully do justice.
Amazing. So exciting. Okay, so what advice do you have for aspiring authors?
Ooh, advice for aspiring authors. It's not original, but read. You've got to, you read everything. And it doesn't have to be read the things that you want to read, I should say. You don't have to read like everything on the bestseller list. You don't have to read that big book that everyone is talking about that you feel like you should be reading, but you're like, oh, I'm not really like excited about it. I think someone other than me has said that life is too short to read books you don't like. And I truly believe that. If you start something and you're not into it, unless you have to do it for some type of assignment, put it down. Just start something else. Find what really speaks to you. Because I think that the more we read, the more the more literature you consume, the better writer you're going to be. It's a pretty direct relationship. And then I would say keep a journal, it can be in the notes app of your phone. There's an app called Day One that I really like. That's kind of a digital journal that you can add pictures to and video and all sorts of things. Or it can be a Google Doc, or it can be a, physical kind of journal, a more traditional thing. But I think that, I do not journal or write in a diary every day. I try to, but it doesn't, you don't have to kind of follow that narrative format of like, dear diary, here's what happened today. It could just be like something like words or some interesting thing you saw on the street or something you ate or just something that made an impression in your mind for one reason or another. Doesn't need to make sense. But I think that when you go back and kind of read through that stuff, or when you're searching for like, wait, what happened? That there was something that happened that one day and it like kind of stuck in my mind as like, what if I wrote a story based on this, or if this was a character, a point of inspiration? It's just really useful to have that repository. And I think that the act of writing also, I know for me, it helps me remember things that have happened in my life. And yeah, it just makes it all feel a little bit more real.
Sheila, this book, so great. And by the way, fabulous cover. I feel like I need to put you in touch with Michelle Wilgen, who wrote Wine People, which is a book that we published at Zibby Books, which is very different, more like inside the working in the wine industry. But anyway, I feel like the two of you should meet and have some sort of event or something at this. I don't know. It would be fun.
I would love to do that. That is, that sounds fantastic. And that sounds like a really great foil for this, fictional group of people just behaving badly in wine country. But to talk about that with someone who actually has experience in this world, that would be really cool.
Okay. I will put you in touch after this.
Lovely.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Zibby.
Good to meet you. All right.
So good to meet you.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. If you love it, please leave a review and follow us on social at Zibby Owens and at Zibby Readers.